Hey, beautiful souls. It's me and Maisie here. Say hey, everybody. Welcome to Well Body Wednesdays, where every second Wednesday of the month, I'm either introducing you to, reminding you, or reconnecting you to holistic healing modalities through conversations with holistic healers, practitioners, therapists, guides, alchemists, way showers who are here to share their gifts and also to support us in our personal healing journeys, which raises the frequency and vibration of our home being our physical bodies, which impacts the frequency and vibration of our collective home, this planet, or as we love to call her, Mama Earth. Well Body Wednesdays was birthed back in 2016 when my business was called Ascension Well Body and Fitness. The well body part of that name was to bring awareness to all of the health and wellness dimensions that play into the optimization of our physical bodies. Since I was a Pilates and bar instructor, I wanted it to be clear that the glow up was not just about this physical vessel, but that it was also about our mental health, our spiritual health, our emotional health, our financial health, our sexual health, our career sector, and our relationships. And also, since alternative and holistic medicine and therapies was and still is such a huge part of my personal healing journey, I wanted to share that with my community. So, for Well Body Wednesdays, I would host monthly community events where I would bring in health practitioners and experts to share their knowledge with the community so that they could learn about new modalities if they didn't know about them and have access to that information. So you guessed it, I'm bringing Well Body Wednesdays onto my channel in its shape-shifted form. So now that you have the backstory, let's get into it. Okay. Yay. So hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Well Body Wednesday. I have a beautiful guest here today to share some of her wonderful, amazing, powerful energy and the work that she does in our collective. So I have Miss Queen Viv, as she likes to be referred to. I met you through a online course that I was a part of because you were a part of an older cohort too, right?
Yes.
Yes. And we were on one of the module calls, and I don't know if I reached out to you to be accountability partners or you reached out to me, but anyway, we are accountability partners, and I found out all these amazing things that she does and who she is, and I was like, I need you to be on my channel and share your gifts
Wow.
on Well Body
Thank you.
Wednesday. So
Thank you.
welcome, Queen Viv. Let me introduce you. So, Queen Viv is a Reiki Master teacher, soul realignment practitioner, and family therapist by trade. She has written and published 6 books and is now working on a project with previously incarcerated individuals to write and publish their own stories. So, welcome, Queen Viv. Thank you for being
Thank you.
here.
Thank you.
Yes. So tell my viewers about yourself.
So, where do you want me to begin? Do you have some
Let's
questions for
see.
me?
Oh,
Because
you know
that's a
what?
long story.
You know what? Let's start with what you wanted to be when you were a kid. Let's do a little icebreaker. That's my little
Okay.
icebreaker. I always start these Well Body Wednesdays with. So, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
So, when I was younger, I always envisioned myself um being I'll say a person that uplifted other people. I mean, this is crazy, but I considered myself a Black Panther and the Mama when I was 13 years old. I used to see them passing out the papers at the corner of the street. And back then in the 70s, it was, people were wearing afros and, it was all about the Black Power movement. And I said, I want to be one of these people. And, of course, I was too young. I tried to sign up for Islam when I was 16, and I couldn't because I needed my mom's signature and she wasn't with me. I did a lot, traveling by myself when I was a kid. But I also had this thing for writing poetry. So I did a lot of writing poetry. I still have a lot of the poetry that I've written since a kid. So one of those things, one of those people, like a writer type of person.
Yeah. Okay. Because my follow-up question is that the same work you are doing now? And it absolutely is, because you are a
Absolutely.
published author and you help people to tell their stories. So
Yeah, yeah, I do.
absolutely.
Hmm. And quite the revolutionist, I'm
Yeah.
also pretty much.
Yeah.
Something that I didn't mention in my bio was that I'm also the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies
Mhm.
for a behavioral health organization. So that gives me, a chance to utilize my revolutionary self because I get to educate, not only just Native Black Americans, but, and people of color, but also white people. I get a chance to
Mhm.
educate them about things that they don't know about their history.
Yeah. And bringing more self-awareness to them
Mm-hmm.
and the role that they're playing in our community. So that's deep revolutionary work for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so tell me your journey to the work that you do, like your Reiki Master, family therapist, soul realignment. I would love for you to talk about that. But tell me what your journey was getting to those roles you serve in.
So I'll start with this. I was pretty sickly years ago. When I believe I was 18, I was found out to have thalassemia. And that's a Mediterranean type of anemia. And back then, at least in Boston, there weren't many cases. So they really didn't know how to treat it, but they just knew that I needed iron, I was losing oxygen, I didn't have much oxygen supply, and I had an overabundance of white blood cells, and the red blood cells were basically not keeping up, right, with the flow. So most of that was remedied by vitamins, um, vitamin C, iron, things like that. But as I started getting older and childbearing age, I started having children, and I had actually had numerous um, blood transfusions because of my blood going so low. But I would always manage to regain my strength, and I'd get back on my iron, and things would kind of work itself out. But as time went on and I got older, I started to develop fibroids. I thought I had gotten them all removed, and there was one that was and I'm it's a little bit graphic, but it was one that was kind of hiding under the uterine wall. And, for people who don't really understand what fibroids are, that's nothing but stress. That's where I was holding my stress. Most women, we experience stress in our reproductive, system. And so a lot of times they morph into these things that are called fibroids, and they say they're alive actually because they live and they breathe and they eat the estrogen that's in our body. But fast forward, I had a hemorrhaging fibroid, and I was on my way to work, a new job that I had at the theater, wonderful job that I was like a dream job, and I started hemorrhaging on the train. And that was, I felt like I was going to pass out. I had to get off the train. I saw this woman she looked friendly, and I said to her, "Excuse me, miss, I think I'm going to pass out." So she walked me off of the train only through the grace of God, the universe, and all the powers that be. My sister happened to be working upstairs. She worked right upstairs from the train station that I was supposed to get off at anyway. And so I told this woman, this very nice woman, my sister worked upstairs, so I was able to call my sister and tell her to come down. I had to get rushed to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, now mind you, I was just starting the job. So that meant I didn't have health insurance, right? That meant that it didn't kick in yet. So I had to go to a hospital that was that was unfamiliar to me. They were unfamiliar with my body, with my situation, and I didn't have health insurance. So my sister brought me to Boston Medical Center, and the first thing I did when I got into the emergency room was I need O positive blood, because I already knew. I know I've had so many blood transfusions. It's unfortunate. I was starting to feel like a vampire. And, I just said right then and there, it's like, this is what the issue is. I know. So that could have saved my life, because I was able to come up with, a solution before they started doing all their testing and everything. And then I was hospitalized. They basically patched me up. They gave me this shots to stop my menses, because I was still, menstruating at the time. So they gave me this shot that stopped it. And then they basically sent me home, and they gave me a prescription. And the prescription was for I didn't know what it was. But I found out later that it was for another one of those shots, right? And I was downtown. I went to fill the prescription, and I just, took a little walk, and I was coming back. I'll be back to get my prescription or whatever. It'll be ready in 25 minutes. Got to the front desk. Lo and behold, they told me that the prescription cost $600. $600. Because what it was whatever solution they gave me to stop my, my menses, it was in that little, jar. And I guess I was supposed to bring it to the hospital, and then bring it to the hospital, and then also have it injected. But I didn't have insurance. I just, I said, well, you could just keep the little vial, because I definitely wasn't going to pay 600. And what wound up happening was I wound up hemorrhaging again 2 days later. So at this stage of the game, I had to be I had to, be rushed to the emergency room, and I had to have an emergency hysterectomy. Now, I wasn't surprised about the hysterectomy, because I had been told years ago that, that could be a possibility, although I know that Queen Afua begs to differ. And of course she would, because, of the health and wellness, and how you prevent these things from happening. And me being ignorant, I had no idea of these things at the time. But I'll tell you what I did do after I got out of the hospital. And I was down for about 2 months. I actually, I started to delve into holistic readings. And let me just, backtrack a little bit. There was a sister, because I was finally able to join the Nation of Islam when I got to be a certain age. And there was a sister that used to come in. She used to put her hands on me. And I didn't know what she was doing, but she said, Sister Vivian, just stand right here, because she would see me sometimes. I'd be on post in between searching, people that came in, guests, and I'd be on the ground, because like my stomach was hurting so bad because of my, my periods was so heavy. And why was I there anyway, right? So dedicated soldier, yeah, sister soldier, taking care of everybody but myself. But she would put her hands on me, on my, my stomach and in my back. And then she'd say to me, now go home. And she did that twice. And she said, don't stop anywhere. She said, don't bother talking to people. She said, just go home. So I would go home, and I would sleep like a baby. The pain was gone. I still didn't really understand I heard the word Reiki, but I was like, what? I didn't know what that was. The sister was the elder sister. So I don't know. She could have been dealing with anything, right? So that was how I got introduced to it. And then fast forward with that job that I had, the theater job, I wound up experiencing some level of stress, and I bumped into another sister actually that did Reiki, and she did Reiki on me, and so many things happened all at once, because Reiki, it's not just about balancing your your energy points and being well from an organization, I'll say an organ standpoint or a physical level standpoint, but it also deals with the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension. And what I mean is, you ever heard that saying, thoughts become things? So so when you're becoming aligned, your entire body aligns with you and aligns with your spirit, and therefore you're pouring out into the universe, and you are attracting things to you that you actually need. Sometimes they don't show up in a friendly way. Sometimes they don't show up as what you want it to show up, but is what you need and what your spirit is calling for at that time, which is the ultimate thing for growth, right? And healing. So I wound up doing some research. I Googled someone because I was like, I want to learn how to do this. And I actually resonated with, I just felt the energy from this woman who was in Rhode Island, a elder white woman, and she was she's well known Reiki master. And I just called her up and I said, I wanted to get a Reiki session. So because I felt like if we connected that way, I might just venture off into learning it. So I got my Reiki session. It was a wonderful experience. It was so uplifting. It made me feel like actually it can make you feel like you're in a heavenly place. It can, for whatever that means for people. But I definitely felt realigned. I felt energetic and calm at the same time. Anyway, fast forward, I wound up doing Reiki 1 with her, Reiki 2, and then I did a refresher, and then I did advanced Reiki, and then I went back and got my master's certificate. So me and this woman have had a relationship. She's like 85 years old now, and she's in assisted living. She's living in LA. I went to visit her when I was there seeing my son. So she's definitely somebody that taught me, and I realized that I needed to be my own rescue.
Right.
So the short part of the story to your answer is that I had to save myself. Obviously, the healthcare system is not designed to save us. Mm-hmm. It's designed to keep us coming back.
Absolutely. And get them dollars, right? Get that money. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. Did you have any idea or insight around what your stressors were at the time? I know as we get older, we can kind of identify our stress more, but was this when you were young? Were you younger at this time? Or were you, maybe I should just ask, were you aware of yourself at that time?
I think I was aware of myself like from since I was 5, but and not really. And but I okay, so in terms of stressors,
and I think it would just be good to identify, because so many of us Black women deal with fibroids, right? And a lot of women don't see it from a spiritual or energetic perspective, that they are living beings that can be parasitical and eating away at our hormones, and that is caused by literally stress. And when you identifying and naming some of your stressors could give other women some insight and be like, oh, kind of make those connections. So that's why I'm asking.
No, exactly. So, in terms of the stressors, and I was actually in deep thought when you asked the question the first time, because I'm a survivor of sex trafficking, right? And yeah, I probably did go through stress then, but I didn't know. Then I wasn't aware I mean, I was aware of it, but it wasn't something that, I thought would turn around or turn against me later. Because, first of all, when you're hustling, you don't have time to think about stuff like that. You have to think about staying alive. You know what I mean? And getting that bag, or whatever it is that,
Yeah,
that person doing.
survival mode.
Exactly, survival, right? So, but when I had my children, I actually had my daughter at 26 and my son at 30. um I would say the residue from that lifestyle, um, and the ways that I had to exist started to creep up on me because I was still in survival mode. And there are certain areas in your brain that just shut down in order to protect you. Your frontal lobe, that reptilian part of your brain always comes to your rescue. And I lived like that for years and years. So therefore, you are basically living in fear and getting comfortable with that fear, getting comfortable in that space. Like, if nothing was challenging me, my well-being or my life, I didn't feel normal. So that's a form of, PTSD, of course. People call it post-traumatic stress disorder. But there's, it's also considered as battle fatigue. And battle fatigue doesn't always show up on the battlefield when you're a Marine, or in the army in Iraq. It shows up in our very lives, like every single day we're out there, especially Native Black Americans, all types of people, in terms of, people of color first and foremost, and people that live in poverty. However, Native Black Americans, and I have to say it like that, is that when, we have this thing inside of us that no one else could possibly understand. We're overcoming, I'm still overcoming or battling, this, I would say, these people are battling white supremacists from a spiritual, from a soul standpoint. And then it just trickles down to your physiology, physical and mental. And we live with that before we even come out the womb. We're already being discriminated against. Okay, so we hit the dry land already with our defenses up. Fear has already been deposited in us. And that was one of the ways that we were saved, so they thought, back in slavery, was to, like, oh, you have to conform, because if you don't conform, then like in Roots, they'll cut your foot off, or what have you. But yeah, so I got used to stress. But obviously I had a high level. I was able to live with a high level of stress. There was stress around, you know, um, around just not having enough, stress around, you know, um, I would have to say, running from the police, stress around being able to provide, as I started getting older, for my children, and not just, from a financial standpoint, but being able to give them what they need as human beings, so that they don't go down the routes that I go down. Wondering about world issues, because of course, like I said, I was 12, 13 years old, wanting to be a Black Panther. So, like, already in my mind, I already understood some level of racism. I didn't understand it, but I knew something was wrong with that picture. If somebody treats you badly, or somebody calls you, like, the N-word or something, like, that stuff started to sit in. So racism in and of itself is a stressor. Right. But we've gotten so used to living with it that we don't even see it, but it shows up in fibroids. It shows up in cancer. It shows up as as diabetes and high blood pressure and so many other things. It shows up not just, of course, with us, but also with men, but the work is with the women, especially this day and age. The work is with the women. It's time for us to do what it is that we need to do for our families. And that's why, in my heart, and one of my missions is to, I would like to see a healer in every household. I feel like there needs to be a healer in every household, and it doesn't always have to be the woman, but most of the time we're the ones with, that gravitate towards that type of thing. So, yeah.
And I believe that that's what's happening on a collective, on a spiritual level, collective spiritual soul level. I feel like that is what's happening in with the feminine energy. Is we've all been awakening over these years. We've all been kind of reclaiming our power and really aligning with our true nature and divinity, and activating our healing abilities and gifts and whatnot, so that that vision can play out. So I feel like, yeah, I'm right there with you with that vision for sure. And but I do see it happening, and it's a slow process, but we've been making some big strides, and but it is happening. There was something you said that, oh, when you were talking about your stressors, about, what about your, like, being in sex work? That's really heavy, heavy work, or trafficking even, because you said you were trafficking. That takes it to a whole other level. Um, did you have any, some of those more, you taking on those more, oh, I just almost knocked my computer off. Some of those more self-inflicting stressors where you take on like the guilt, the shame, and all of that. Did you have those type of feelings towards yourself?
I um I would say that
Or were you on the other
when I
end
was
of it?
younger,
Like, mm-hmm.
no,
Oh,
no,
sorry.
I'll tell you exactly where the guilt and the shame, with the root of it. When I was younger, I would be the one that always had to go pick up the child support money, right, from my father, from my, and a lot of times he might not have had it. But my mother, me being the oldest, I was relied upon heavily. If I didn't come back with the child support money, because like when they broke up, when they split up from their marriage, he had to pay child support. And, back then it was like no electronics, anything. So I would go to his very nice apartment where he would most of the time, and, my stepdad's no longer here, but he had grown, and he, so very, very loving towards us once he finally got a clue. But at this time, he was very young too. But he would come stumbling in with his pretty girlfriends or what have you. And here this kid is waiting for him at the front door, 12 years old. Actually, yeah, about 11, maybe 11, hoping that he was going to give me the $40 that he was supposed to give my mom every week for 4 children, right? And there were a couple of times that he couldn't do it. So for me, what that meant was that my siblings didn't eat. If I didn't come home with that money and stop at the Burger King up the street, there was nobody was eating that night, right? So I learned about humility and money. I had a relationship with money in that way at a very young age. It felt like I was learning that money equals humiliation. I also went to the welfare office when mom ran out of whatever like money she had, and I would dress a certain way, like, so I didn't look like I was being well kept, and I would be asking for what back then used to be called food orders, and it would be like $15 or what have you, and I would ask for food orders, and like who could turn away this innocent face, and I was only 11 years old. So, I did that. And so I developed an association, a very unhealthy association with money at a very young age. And it was linked to humiliation, shame, and guilt. So by the time I got, into being groomed as, this other person, it was easy because, my history at home took care of the part that they would have had to break me into, like, oh, do this, and then if you don't do this for me, then I'm going to tell your friends about that. Or, that's some of the games they play. It wouldn't have worked on me because I was already, used to being in shame, So
Yeah.
do you understand what I'm saying? So it was easy. I was easily groomed, if that answers the question. So, as far as carrying the shame and the guilt, the only reason why I carried some of it over is because if I couldn't get a job, because I had, of course, police record, and also my children. I didn't want my children to know what I had been doing and what I was up to when I was younger, until I wanted to tell them. You know what I mean? But I didn't want anybody else to say, oh, by the way, even though your mother is doing this over here in the community, really good person or whatever, Queen Viv, she used to be a hoe. You know what I'm saying? Like, because people can be really, really vicious. So it in that respect, I actually made it easy, and I told them when they were younger, so that way no one could walk up to them and tell them anything about me. So, and I don't feel like I had to get rid of the shame and the guilt and stuff, because it's probably still, I'm hard as a rock. I mean, like, my
Right.
brain it is what it is. This is my brain. That's why I can do what I do the way I do it, is because there's a certain part of my brain that I can just shut off when I feel like it.
Yes. And what was I gonna say? But I mean, it's so interesting how our traumas serve us in in a dark way, but also serve us in our light as well. And so you're right about that, like being able to access that easily in the work that you do now that's more progressive and healing for others. But I was going to ask you, what was that conversation like with your kids? Like, how old were they?
So my daughter, I had to tell her when she was 12, because no, actually she was 8, because me and my first husband had broken up, and her stepmother alluded to some things to my kid while she was over there,
Mhm.
right? She came home talking crazy about something one day, and I was like, oh, okay, I know what this is. I know what this is. She got a hold of some information that she shouldn't have been privy to. And for that matter, the girlfriend shouldn't have been either, but you know how it goes. It just that's how it be sometimes, right?
Mhm.
People talk. And so I had to sit her down, and I talked to her, and I told her. She knew what it was a little bit, because her favorite movie was Pretty Woman, and I used to, and she used to say, she was like, "Mommy, when I grow up, I'm gonna be a hooker," and I'm like, "Oh no, you're not." And she says, "But I won't sleep with anybody." But it's like the glamour and all that kind
Glamour,
of stuff.
that
Yeah, yeah,
being a
exactly.
woman in power, and yeah,
Yes, exactly, exactly. So,
and that
so
dark
she
feminine energy.
energy, yeah, she had a frame of reference, you know um and people might say, oh, it's terrible you let your kid watch that, but she watched the good parts, and maybe I shouldn't have let her watch it, but she's a really smart girl today, and she also does therapy too, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Thank you for
Oh
sharing
wait,
that.
my
But
son
what was yeah, I was like, how
my
was the
son
conversation?
my son my son actually didn't know about my lifestyle in detail until he read my book.
Mm,
I told him some things. He knew that I, hustled and stuff, and I've gotten to the drug game and, things like that. But of course, him being a male, I didn't get into the details of anything. And plus, he wasn't as inquisitive as my daughter.
right.
He'd probably be like, no, ma, I don't want to hear no more. But my daughter was like, but mom, she wants to know every tiny little detail. She's still
Yeah.
like that now. Scorpion,
Yeah.
scorpion.
Mm,
So,
that,
but we're my friend, my kids are my best friends.
mhm.
My adult children are my best friends.
And so were they shocked? How did they respond to you when you
When I told
shared it.
my daughter, she was she wasn't she well she was too young, really. As time went on and on and on, I told her more and more stories and stuff. But I would say that they were more proud of me than anything, and so was my son. He's extremely proud of me. He's like, Mom, I don't know if so many people, I don't know how many people could have landed on their feet so many times like you have. I mean, I got stories like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I could probably write a whole series.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've shared some things, with my daughter, but they're really proud. They're proud. I don't think they've ever been embarrassed about anything. About, if anything, their friends wish that they could have a Queen Viv like in their
Yeah.
family or as an auntie or whatever. I took all the kids and all the teenagers too, schooled them.
Mm. I know that's right. So how did moving from that phase of your life turn into you doing the work that you do now? How did you get out of it? Um
So, okay, I have a really good answer for you. So first of all, I've always had the best of both worlds, right? I used to sneak and read, revolutionary books when I was, younger, and I was also reading The Happy Hooker. So in my brain, I was getting kind of like this education about the street, but I was also getting this education about, revolution, about people and about equality and things like that. So I when I the last time that I would say the last case that I got, I was on a really bad, run where I had gotten arrested like almost like 30 times in 1 year, right? And I figured, like, you know what? It's kind of like time.
yeah.
The gig is up. And so what happened was I wound up I signed myself up in the Nation of Islam. And
Mm.
I met some brothers at court. Because I was there for another reason, Superior Court. And they were in the lobby supporting one of their brothers. And one of the brothers gave me his card. And then I went out. I just went out to the mosque. And I wanted to join when I was 16 anyway.
Mhm.
I was 24, I think, at the time. 24,
Mhm.
25, something like that. And so I just went to the mosque and I stayed there.
Yeah.
I stayed there for about 24 years. I and
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like, now it was a hard transition
Mhm.
because, going from, but I'm an extremist anyway when it comes to, it's either, I'm just learning the balance part, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I stayed my behind in the mosque because it was empowering. It taught me about, Black women. It taught me about my heritage. It helped me to understand that, the things that I had been exposed to and the life that I led was by design, um, and it empowered me as a human being. And I also I went to get my bachelor's degree um, as well, so I was
Mhm.
doing all of that, just getting myself together. And I studied sociology. I studied 6 different religions. So that's what kind of got
Wow.
me into the energy work too, because I've always had, I'm not a religious person. Even when I was in the mosque, I wasn't religious. It's just about God to me and just learning the different languages of God. And I feel like after a while, after doing so much studying with so many different, I would say, call them mentors, I realized that a lot of what I went through, I feel, was more like an initiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so we get to keep some of this darkness. We get to keep some of the darkness
Absolutely.
because we have no choice. That's why we have it in the first place.
Right. That's part of who we are, is learning how to integrate it and transmute it and
Mhm.
allow yourself to take that, because there's so much learning in the darkness, right? There's so much
Mhm.
power in the darkness. Like
Darkness.
I love the darkness, even though it's ugly, scary,
Mhm.
painful, all of that. Like I totally embrace darkness. Um,
Mhm.
there's some deep medicine there. And this is why I have this platform, because I love, and this is why I'm like, I haven't even asked any of my questions, because I love listening to people's stories. I love when they're raw and real, and people's journeys, and how you transform from, because we come out, and well, some of us are born into the darkness,
Yes.
but how we take those and those wounds and that story in the darkness, and transmute it and change it and transform ourselves, and then put it into work that we do into the collective. I think that's beautiful. And then you just sharing your story is you have a story of trust, you have a story of being yourself, and you have freed yourself, which is literally what my channel is about. And it sounds like the nation was really pivotal in your transformation and
Yes.
freeing yourself as well, and introduced you to other modalities. So, or at least were the initiation, as you termed it, and to other modalities. And so in your bio, you say you do soul realignment. Can you talk about that? Like, what is soul realignment?
So soul realignment is basically for those of us that accept the fact that this isn't our first rodeo.
Yep. Me, I'm one of those
right. So we have karmic patterns, just like we have generational patterns in this life, and we still hold the generational horrors of slavery within us genetically, right? We also bring some stuff with us too from the past lives that we've had. And I figured that it's really wonderful to do energy reading that I do with folks, that I read their chakras and I figure out what's imbalanced. And that's not a bad thing, of course. It just means that something might be happening that time of their life, or maybe they're not eating properly, or maybe there could be something that's going on internally. But that is not just third dimensional and fourth dimensional. And when I say fourth dimension, I'm speaking about the mentality of it, because most of the time people don't talk about fourth dimension, but that's
right.
That's where that's the age we're living in right now.
Right
Because
now,
if you notice, what they're doing is they're fighting to control group consciousness. And that is all mental. That is mental. And they're not doing a bad job at it, right?
Right.
Because
There's
people are
Yep.
are cool for Cocoa Puffs. They losing it. Like, the pandemic, man, that hit a lot of people hard. Like, there's folks that have not recovered from
Yeah.
that, right?
And it
But
exposed so much about our mental consciousness, and it activated all these mental health therapists stepping into their roles and bringing that to the forefront. So yes, but I love how you're bringing up dimensions, because and before you continue, hopefully hold on to your thought. I want you to, in your definition, what are dimensions? Because it's out, that language is out in the world, and there's a lot of illusion around it as well, and misconceptions around it, and everybody defines it differently. So what's your definition of dimensions?
So you want me to answer that now, or after I finish with the soul reading thing?
Answer it first.
Okay. So I like to keep things real simple. And when you look at dimensions, you're basically looking at frequencies and vibrations. And when you talk about the first, the second, we're talking about the beast level, or the plant level, where there isn't any intellect really, right? Although there is. Yes. I just don't have a word for it. I don't have a word for it, right? But the third dimension is just as we are, and really some people will beg to differ that this is even an illusion, that this is just a projection of the fourth and fifth dimension. Fifth dimension has to do with ether and spirituality. And so I kind of like to keep it really simple, because I think in this day and age, again, like we were just saying, because they're fighting so hard to control group consciousness, there are individuals that delve into this kind of work and light work that are really not, it's not in our best interest. So it's very, very easy to confuse the people by giving them too much information, or information that's slightly tipped, which makes it no longer a truth, right? But because we are all dimensions, and because we are nature in and of itself, all we have to do is be ourselves and not get too caught up in the semantics of it all. Because then we start going to 6, 7, 8, 9, all that dimension. We're getting into geography now. We're getting into sacred geometry, and right, we're getting into different things like chemicals and different things that, you know, if you're not a scientist, like, you know, you're not going to understand it, you know.
And it could be easily manipulated and
it can,
cause
yes,
confusion. Yeah.
and cause confusion. So I typically like to keep it, you know, as simple as I possibly can. And I, to be honest with you, I am amazed that, you know, something I heard the other day, which I had been making the connections myself, but I used to always question, why do we always talk about the third dimension and the fifth dimension, but we never talk about the fourth dimension, right? And now I know it's because, you know, anytime people want to control you, they control the narrative. And these people have controlled, they're masters of controlling the narrative. And part of the narrative is to keep some of the information out, you know. And that's one of the reasons why I do the books. And because there is, I would say, empowerment and telling your own story, because there's too many people that are out there telling the story for us. And what happens to our generations when they don't know the real story of Zalasia? Or, you know, and believe me, it happens one generation. It's not even like 3 or 4 generations.
Right.
You lose it in one generation. If you don't tell your children your stories, then they can't tell their children anything. And then it just keeps going on. And before you know it, here they are, part of the matrix, living, so not even, they're walking dead, really, like robots, you know. Yeah. So as far as the soul realignment practice, so I realized that, you know, it's a whole lot bigger than us, and it goes a lot deeper than just genes and, you know, DNA and the past in this life. But we all have karma, and we bring that from one life to the next. Now, what intrigued me was that, well, first of all, I trust myself. So before, I might not have trusted myself, and I might not have taken the course, right? I probably would have been like, who's this crazy lady? Or no, this is not for me, you know, because usually I'm running anyway, because I'm not into, you know, being a fortune teller. I don't want to, you know, be a medium. That's not my lane. Other people have that lane. But this was spot on. So basically, you go into the Akashic Records, and there's a, you know, as you would know, some people.
Hold on. What's the Akashic Records for people who don't
know? So the Akashic Records basically is the library of the universe. Okay. And if, you know, being that we're, like, some people are visual, if you look at it as a real library, it holds the book of life for every individual, the book of life. This life, the last life, the life before that, the life that's coming. And, you know, one of the things that I learned in Islam was that we write history 25,000 years in advance. Now, think about that. We write history 25 years in advance, because everything that we do today is what? It's now history. So the Akashic Records, they're the holds the space for all of those things. So when I say go to Akashic Records, you have to go to the fifth dimension, which is not any goobly gobbly stuff. It's really just imagining, you know, imagining yourself going up an elevator to the 5th floor, something as simple as that, right? And then being able to locate certain souls. And how I do it is basically by person's name, the person's birth date, and also like their place of birth, just to make sure that you're locating the right soul. And sometimes some souls don't want to be read, and once you know, you realize that that's not, you can't violate, it's a violation if you move, and you're really not supposed to read people's souls who don't give you permission. um Although when you have a spouse or with, you know, siblings, you can definitely you know, delve into those things because they're directly connected with you, or to you. So, you know, so what I do is I go to the Akashic Records. I have a system, and I ask a question. I use my pendulum. Some people don't, I don't know, some people might not know what it is, but I don't go any place without it. Like I said, I'm not a fortune teller, and so I don't use it for that reason. Some people kind of play around with it like that, but
And
I
and hold on. What's for people who don't know, what's a pendulum?
So pendulum really just reads energy. It reads energy, and I have this book that says it's called, it's advanced pendulum, to learn about pendulum. And I'll be honest with you, I've read it, I've went through it, and it doesn't tell me anything more than what I already know. All I know is that it responds to, uh, if you think something and you ask it a question, it will move for you. But first you have to align it with yourself and ask it, you know, it'll tell you yes, no, maybe, you know, and you have to make sure that you know what your yes is and what your no is and what your maybe is. So that way, when you're asking the questions, it'll go a certain way. Now, when I'm doing chakra readings or energy readings, it typically turns clockwise. And you know, if it's a blockage, it'll just stand still. Sometimes it'll hesitate like this, as if it wants to say something. um but I'm gonna, you know, maybe at the time when I was reading that book on pendulums, maybe I wasn't ready for it.
Ready. Yeah.
Maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna circle back and I'm gonna take a look, because I know so much more than I did when I first got that book. Because I was like, not telling me nothing I don't know. You know what I mean? So
Right.
sometimes you don't know what you don't know, you
Right.
know? So,
Exactly.
so
And you
I,
got to ask it yes or no
yeah,
questions,
mm-hmm. You
not
ask you yes or no
open-ended
questions.
questions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so like respect to the system that I use, all I do is ask it these questions, and it'll tell me if there's certain blockages to the soul, or if there's certain souls that are attaching to this person's soul, because we're always intertwining. There's always you know, possibility that we could also be resonating off of someone else's soul energy. So now the first thing that I do, which I absolutely love doing, is I you know, we talk about what star constellation you you incarnated. And sometimes you come from one place, but you have like characteristics of another place, because that means that basically that your soul might have like chilled there for a period of time, and you brought into this life some of the characteristics of that star constellation. So, and with the star constellations, what it interprets is into characteristics of human beings, of us,
Right.
you know. So it
How
may
we
be
were
a
seated.
situation. Exactly. And it may be a situation where someone might think that they want to be a songstress, right? But they came from a star constellation where they produced a lot of I'll say um I'll say people that do mechanical drawing, like they might have been, you know, mathematical instead. And then they wonder why, or say they came from a place with songstress, but they're working in a job
Mhm.
as a person who's doing blueprints for houses, and they wonder why they're not getting any passion. They don't have passion for what they're doing, because a lot of times they're out of alignment with their soul purpose. So that's the reason why someone would want to get their soul read, is to find out what star constellation, to kind of checks and balances. Like, am I going in the right direction in my life? Because I am doing this and I've been doing this for 20 years, but this keeps on coming up for me. And I feel like I should be doing this, or I should be offering this to the world, or what have you. So that's one of the duties behind getting to know what your what your soul constellation is, and also some of the other characteristics that go along with it. And it's actually pretty fun. It's, some people get all weirded out and stuff, but it's really fun. I get a kick out of it,
Yeah.
and also talking to people about about
Yes.
it. So and I feel very at home in doing that work. That's how I know that it's something that I am supposed to be doing. And there are some people that do it. It's not a lot, but some people haven't stepped into their purpose either. There's so many of us that are running so far away from ourselves because that's what we've been taught to do. They've taken that stuff from us, and then guess what they do? They bottle it up and sell it back to us.
Right.
That's what they do. They sell it. They sell Reiki back to me.
That's
They
the game that they
Soul
play.
Realignment back to me.
Right.
Exactly.
It's all wisdom that has been in us for the beginning of time, but we've been closed off to it, and it's been stolen from us, and
yeah, by design.
by design.
And we were the pendulum. We were the pendulum.
I was about to say,
now
see, I have like a few pendulums, and I used to use my pendulums a lot when I was in the beginning of my spiritual journey. And then I started to experiment, like, as you evolve something, so the tools that you use, they're like, oh, okay, this is not sufficient anymore. You get new tools, right? And so as I got into a certain different space in my healing and spiritual journey, I was guided to put the pendulum away. Well, before I share that, I was experimenting with my pendulum a lot, which I started asking it trick questions to see, if the pendulum, if it's really the pendulum. I mean, if it's not if it's the pendulum, if it's really like how my consciousness is showing up at this point in time, and what's behind the movement of the pendulum. Like, I started to get really, because I'm like super curious and super deep, and I experiment a lot. And so I started to ask it questions, trick questions, and I realized that at that point in time, because you reach another level of awareness, that it was me, right? That this, at a point in time, it served me in the way that it needed to. But then now it's like I'm too much more aware now, too much more conscious. And so it was showing me that through that experiment. And I'm like, okay, so having the guidance to put that aside, and getting those downloads about my body being the pendulum. But I know this is the journey for all of us, is as we are, especially those who are just more awakened and using the different tools, the tarot, astrology, all of those things. Like, once you, like, it's always going to lead us back to the body and what is in us naturally. That's as African descent people. We are, like you just said, we are the pendulum. We are astrology. We are the universe. So everything, all these tools, that because somebody created them, right? It came from someone's they created it because it was within them to create, right? For us to utilize and help us to remember who we are, right? Exactly. And so this to relearn who we are. And so essentially, you bringing out your pendulum made me want to share, like, my journey, a little bit of my journey with that is that now my body is my pendulum, and this is what I incorporate into my teachings and classes now. It's like how to use your body as a pendulum and your pelvis as a pendulum and whatnot. And so, thank you for saying
I love that,
because it's really, because now that there's this like next wave of people awakening to the tools and stuff. like, I think it's such a good point that you're bringing up the 3D, 4D, 5D consciousness, and the pendulum and the soul realignment, Akashic records. Like, this is why I have people like you on my Well Body Wednesdays, because this is the knowledge that we need in our collective from people that look like us, so that it's not so taboo anymore, that and someone could be fit like a young Black girl, boy could be feeling, like how you felt. I think you said you felt like you felt a little weird or something at first, or felt like, oh, what is this, or what, questioning. Same thing, like they could be doing that and then watch this video and see you speaking that language, and having that knowledge and wisdom, and also be able to come and book a reading with you, book you to help you be a mentor and guide them in their next journey of their souls, guide them in their next. Oh my gosh, I cannot talk today.
Soul journey, but also in this lifetime, where people are toiling over what it is that they should be doing.
Yes, their purpose. Yes, and not even their purpose, but like you said, because I know that I struggle with that a lot, and I'm so stubborn. Like, I'm going to figure it out on my own. I'm going to use my intuition, my guidance, and so it's taken me on these like different pathways and experimenting and exploring different aspects of myself. And I love how you said about, the different star constellations that you come from, because that is a much, I hate the word higher, but it's just more awakened,
in depth,
more access, in depth, knowledge base of in self-awareness. If you think about yourself from that aspect, like you can, like on the 3D level, you like how you bounce around the jobs and you collect that information and knowledge, you build your resume. That's the same thing on the star collective, where you come from. You're born and seated on one planetary base, but then you have many lifetimes in different constellations, and you building your resume. So you come here in human form and you have all this information and gifts, and you're like all over the place, like, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, but knowing, like, coming to see you to get that reading and be like, where do I actually come from, can bring more perspective and more insight, and be like, okay, this is actually what I'm designed to do, this is, but I have all these different aspects and pieces of information that I can pull from my soul's journey, so I love that you brought this into this conversation. Like,
and the thing too, though, Lasia, is that we're brilliant. We're brilliant people. We can master many things. However, there are those that are masters of certain things. And that's what we need to discover. It's like, I know I can do all these 10 things and stuff. People think, oh, what don't you do? Well, right, I do a lot of stuff because I have no choice. That's how it is, especially living in this country. You got to pull a rabbit out your hat every time you turn around, right? Sometimes you got to show up as the rabbit, as I said in one of my books. Sometimes you got to be the gosh darn rabbit, right?
Literally.
but there are those things that we are masters of, and that we were assigned to do, to raise the vibration of this planet.
Say it. That's the language I speak right there. Absolutely. I love it. So the clients that come to you, are they, because not the average person is like thinking like that they come from a different star constellation. So are you putting yourself out there, speaking this language? How do people find you and be like, I want to, or are you putting that information out there?
So that's a different level, where how can I say, like, some people would go as far as wanting to learn Reiki. They understand that Reiki, but they may not want to take a step further because that's just way too much for them, right? But what I do is I introduce it into the conversation. Now, if you go to my website, I just do something together just so folks can get in touch with me, because I have a few funnels, and I'm really getting that part of my business together. But if you go to my website, it kind of like makes it very, very plain on what it is that I actually do. And in terms of soul readings, I don't right now, I'm not necessarily promoting it to everybody on every platform. I'm learning what platform is for what thing. Like when I'm on a platform with folks who are authors and they want to maybe people that are interested in writing their own narrative, I kind of stick to my ability to coach people in writing and getting their books published. If I'm doing a group, because a lot like tomorrow I'm going to be doing one of the groups, LGBTQIA groups, but it's going to be about mental wellness, and some of those things may come up, and it depends, because those are the kind of conversations that have to happen organically. It's not something that you push or that you promote, because people get weirded out real quick, especially right now. This time, folks are not sure of anything. You know what I'm saying? And they got, the power structure in this air right here. And we've been so untrained to the voice of our ancestors that we don't recognize them. We're starting to recognize them, though. We are. And from what I understood from what, some of my studies, I realized that at one point in time, our ancestors could not locate us because we were resonating on such a low frequency.
Low frequency, yeah.
Right? And so now, especially since the pandemic and all of this crazy madness, some folks, are awakened or awakening, like the Bible says, the awakening giant. That's what's happening before our very eyes. And the ancestors are actually able to tap in. They're able to say, that's a laser. That's because you're on that frequency that you need to be on in order to receive, like you said, those downloads.
Mm-hmm.
So
how can you share a way how one could hear the voice of their ancestors? Like how can one distinguish between the voice of their ancestors and their own voice, or somebody else's thoughts, or the media's thoughts? And
so one thing that I know that I have to do is, in doing that, it's my responsibility to disconnect. Sometimes you have to disconnect yourself, period. You have to be by yourself. You have to learn to be by yourself. And I'm not talking about long periods of time. It could be, it could be the weekend. It could be, just you being home, or maybe some people have, they have their children and their families and everything, so they don't get a lot of alone time, but you have to carve it out. You have to carve it out, and you have to tell your family, listen, this is my time. I need to sit with myself right now. The only way that you can hear it and get to familiarize it is to sit still. I mean, that's why they, not used to it, they still do, like the Buddhist monks, they go to the mountains and they deprive themselves of food, of water, and this and that. They master, the environment, but they also get downloads at the same time, because they're able to be away from the influence of, mortal man, so to speak, right? And so as far as us in this, day and age, we gotta turn off the YouTube. If you turn it on, go to somebody that is going to tell you something that you don't normally hear. Something that is about your life. It could be something about proper diet. It could be you know, there's certain people that I listen to. I have a whole list of people that I listen to. But I feel that the person has to know what they need at that time, because the ancestors cannot reach you. You can't get any downloads if you just listen to, you know, you listen to drill music all day, or, you know, you listening to trap music all day. I'm not saying there's not a place for trap music, because I used to play my trap music on my way to the courthouse when I had to go down there and mess with them fools. And I'm talking about my day job.
Yeah.
Not because I was on the other side of the law.
Right.
I had to put my gangster on so I could
Right.
remember who I am sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
It's activation. Music is
Exactly.
activation, no matter what side of it. But over anything that's, when you over consuming, can become toxic. But knowing how to have balance, harmony,
and play chess. And play chess, knowing how, you know what I'm saying, how to move the chess pieces on the chessboard. But as far as recognizing, there's no way in God's earth that anybody's going to recognize anything if they don't sit still. There's no way. There's just absolutely no way. You
And
know,
so when
but
people think sit still, they think about the monk, you know. So can you give an example of like what stillness
I
look like in this modern time?
Meditation. If listen,
But
I know some
meditation,
people
people
say
think I gotta look like this spiritual divine being, you know. What is
you
meditate?
don't have to. You don't have to, but you definitely need to sit still. Some people think that they can meditate while driving. I mean, meditation is a form of mindfulness. There's a lot of mindfulness activity. There's
Yeah.
a lot of for me, driving sometimes is mindfulness.
Oh yeah, I
It's
get
very,
downloads when I drive. Like that's
yes,
when I'm
all the time
open. Like that portal is open when I'm driving
open.
and when I'm
Exactly.
dancing. Those are the
Yes.
two crucial times. So it's a form of meditation for me.
So
yeah.
Yeah. It was it's a form of well, I would call it myself. I call it mindfulness, and but meditation is actually, it's actually a thing. You know, meditation is actually a science. So some people they don't know how to sit still with themselves. That's not good. That's not good. I mean, I don't care if you start out with 3 minutes a day. Sit your ass down. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to do or nothing like that.
Right.
Go in the bathroom and sit in the bathroom. Take it, just sit there for a minute and just try to release yourself of the 50 million thoughts that's going on in your head at the same time. We're never able to do it. We never reach that point. But the point is to learn.
Queen Viv, what about when I do sit down and get quiet, all those thoughts are so loud. Like
so what you do is you imagine, you visualize all of those thoughts forms and visualize a big cloud. Acknowledge them, embrace them, say, oh, that was an interesting thought. You know what I mean? And then just watch it go floating along the cloud. And that's it.
That's where imagination
you have to acknowledge it.
And visualization. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you don't acknowledge it, it's going to keep on chasing you down.
Woo! In my mind, I have an overactive mind, so I know that very well. Yes, it will not go away.
And breathing, learning to breathe, and the more you do it, the better we get at it, like anything else.
Yeah.
So I started out like with 3 minutes, and then I started with these 7-minute meditations, right? I like the guided meditation, but sometimes I just don't do the guided. It depends on what I'm feeling at that time. Sometimes I like the chanting. Tina Turner has beautiful chanting meditation. Some of them are visualization, but you just try to do a couple of minutes more each day. That's my recommendation. I mean, I bust a move and do a 10-minute, when I gotta hurry up and leave or something like that. But when I'm really in need, oh my goodness, sometimes I have to literally meditate for over an hour, and I will, and I do it because I am determined. I'm like, I am not getting up until I am aligned, until I feel better. Because sometimes you don't feel like it. Sometimes you just like, I just don't feel like doing this today. you
That
know.
reminds me of Lauryn Hill, how she gets a lot of hate because she literally takes her time. She be meditating before she leaves the house or goes to a concert or whatever. And sometimes she will, like you just said, not move on until she feels aligned. And that has spilled over into some of her concert time. And people will get people got upset with her and tried to counsel her or whatever. This was like,
But business is business. I'm also a businesswoman, so
oh yeah,
business is business.
you
And
said, hold on, that's
if I
where
know
I
I got to
draw
make
the
a meeting, guess
line.
what I'm gonna do? If I know I got to make a meeting, right, and I'm talking about a meeting that's putting food on my table, right, I'm gonna bust a 7-minute meditation. My behind will be on that Zoom.
Or plan ahead. Maybe do it like, if you know you
Or
got
get up
no
earlier.
time, get up
Or get up
earlier.
earlier.
Yes.
And I will have my
That's
game
where
face.
I draw the line. I'm about my business. I
Yeah.
know that's
Yeah, because
right.
it's just really about finding the balance.
Yes.
Just finding the balance. That's all.
Yes.
Everybody doesn't have the luxury to do an hour meditation. And I don't always either. But I know when I need to sit my butt down, though. I know when I need to put, and even if that means I have to call out sick because I can't do it right now, then I will do that. And I will spend time taking care of myself. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what those days, personal days are for, you know?
Yeah. Woo. Yeah, that's some good gems right there. Juicy gems. Let's see. I didn't really ask any of my questions that I had.
I think
But
we
it's
answered
good.
most of them.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Um, so I'm gonna ask you, let's do this last little question. Taking a portal to the past. So with soul realignment and the energy work that you do, which era of time do you think this modality could have served us as a community, Black community, as a people, as a collective? What era of time do you think this modality could have served us so that we would not need to do as much healing work, awakening, all of that today?
Well, I feel like honestly, I feel like everything happens as it should. And I feel like there is no other time than now. There is no other best time than right now. Because if there was, it would have been. Right now, and I've been around for a long time. I'm 63 years old. I've seen a lot of things.
Yeah.
And there has never been a time like this in any time that I can identify, or, you know, I was very close to my grandmom who passed in, you know, her 90s, and we had these wonderful conversations. There's never been a time like this, ever, ever, ever. We are exactly where we need to be. It would not have worked before. It would not have been embraced before. People are exactly where they need to be in order to embrace this thing because we're hungry. We're hungry for something different. We're ready for a new earth. We really are. You know, a lot of people are. Some people are resistant, but that's okay because everybody ain't got to be a leader in this. You know, it's not, it ain't for everybody, you know. But I feel honored to be a part of the movement and transformation that is happening right here on this planet with what we have and what we know. And I'm embracing it all, and I'm hoping that, you know, someone gets something from our conversation and they tap into themselves and don't allow fear of anything to drive you away from you becoming the best version of yourself.
Yes. I love that answer so much. That was really, really, really powerful. Very
I had
powerful.
to think about it. Yes, that's it. Yes. Thank
I
you.
love that. No better time than now. Yes. And like they say, the past, present, and future coexist now anyway. So I love that, love that, love that. And 63, you said? Now you're like the embodiment of I I'm glad I don't look like what I've been through. Ain't that how they say that?
Yes, 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 yes.
Thank
Because
God I
that
don't look
really,
like what I've been through. Because
mhm.
literally,
Yeah.
wow.
That see, but when you're constantly feeding your your soul, your spirit, your intellect, when you're in the school of life, you get to maintain your youth. You get to
Yeah.
maintain your youth because you're always willing to make a change. You're always willing to grow. Either we're living or we're dying. Some people have chosen death.
Yes.
And you could see it. They're walking around looking like death,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm, that's the truth. And sometimes the choice, most times, is not conscious. They don't know that they're choosing death to some, but lately there's because the healers out here have been awakening the masses. Like there's so much more consciousness and awareness around choosing life. So now
Yep.
it has become a conscious choice to choose death
Yes.
because there's too much information out here
Too
for
much.
you to still be making the same mistakes and the same
Say you
choices
don't know.
and yeah, and saying you don't know because there's lots of access. So mm, yes. So as you know, this channel is about trusting yourself, being yourself. Do you have a tip, mantra, book you want to share that could be of service or activation to the viewers?
Yeah. Well, I have these two books, right? One is Mask Off: Surviving the Mental Health Epidemic in urban America. The ironic thing about it is that I wrote this book before the pandemic, so nobody was even rocking masks or anything. So, but this is the downloads that I get.
Was ahead,
Okay.
you was getting
So
ready.
exactly. So this is really about mental health, and it's for everybody. It's not just for a mental health practitioner. It's for somebody who wants to understand mental health a little bit better. Somebody who may be getting into the field. It could be for a parent. It's not clinical. It's actually pretty fun. And this is it's called Mask Off, and this is my first Mask Off book. And then my second one, it speaks to well, it's Mask Off too, and it is basically um finding freedom and forgiveness, finding freedom on the other side of sexual exploitation.
Mm,
And what is so sad is that so many of our young people are going through that right now, and that's the conversation people still don't want to have.
mm,
Inside this book, it tells you about some of the tricks, some of the ways that people groom young folks online, also in person, how something can be happening in your home and you not even recognize it in plain sight. So it educates uh, the adults that have children, also the ones that work with children, and it educates young people as well. So you can go to my website. It's I would say, do use the www dot I am Queen Vivian.com. And I have one book that's purchased. One book, this book is the one that you'll see, but you're able to purchase either one or both or whatever at that site, or just send me an email or send me a text message, and we can go from there if you're interested in doing anything else like energy readings and things like that.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more question to end this off
Mhm.
with. Tell me, what do you love about your body?
My body, um that I love about my body. I You mean which part of my body or what?
However it resonates, I mean, however that question hits
Um,
resonates with you. Like, what do you love about your body? Or you can think of it as, what do you love about yourself? But I
mhm.
actually know
So,
it's intentional. What do you love about your body?
okay. So what I love about my body, um, I love the fact that I um I have an energetic body. I'm extremely energetic. Um, I like the fact that my body lets me know when something is not right.
Yeah.
I love that aspect of my body. Um, and then lastly, I love the fact that I don't look 63 because it kind of lets it, I get privy to certain things that I shouldn't be because people think I'm dumb. Some people until I open my mouth. And I've always used that to my advantage because I always look young, right? Young and dumb. And not that those two should ever go together, but some people when they out to get you, they think, and also it helps me to relate to young people because people don't see me as a threat or somebody that's going to judge them, because I don't bring that type of spirit with me, and I can relate to them in hip hop, because that's what I also do is hip hop theater, and
Oh, we didn't even
I
talk
speak
about
teen.
that. You're gonna have to we're gonna have to do another round of this because you left out a whole
Mhm.
bunch.
Yeah, yeah. I speak teen,
You
so
speak teen, yes.
yes.
Yes. Well, thank you
Mhm.
so much, Queen.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for sharing your story. Thank you for bringing your beautiful energy onto my platform and sharing your wisdom as well. I really enjoyed listening to you and conversing with you. We're going to do
Thank
this
you.
again. We're definitely going to do this because
Okay.
we got to talk more about um the dimensions and star constellation too.
Oh
So
yeah, definitely,
I'm gonna
definitely.
bring you back for Wild Wednesday. We're gonna save that for Wild Wednesday.
Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, you already shared where people can find you as www at I am Queen Viv
Vivian.
Vivian
Vivian.
dot
VIVIAN.com.
you have
I am Queen
Instagram.
Vivian. Yes, it is also I am Queen Vivian.
I am Queen Vivian. Okay. Well, yes,
Mm-hmm.
y'all. Thank you for tuning in with us today. Reach out to Queen Viv if you have any questions or interested
Mm-hmm.
in reading. And please go purchase her books too to support and show love. Yeah, so I will see y'all next week. Love and blessings.
Thank you. Peace.
Peace.
But you give